you know how they always say when you're speaking that you should always start with a joke or something like that. Well, I don't start with a joke. I actually start by saying, I'm going to do a magic trick for you. And it's most miraculous and most surprising. But of course, actually, what it is, it's not really a magic trick at all. What happened was that I got incredibly, very, really seriously ill. And I was told that not only would I never walk again or never stand again, even, I was told that I was actually going to die. So, what happened 18 years ago was that I have a condition called rheumatoid arthritis. I'm sure you know about it. It's an autoimmune condition. Um, I had a very, very aggressive form of the condition. And so what happened was I ended up, after a period of immense stress, um, having such a bad flare-up of RA, every single one of my joints was affected. But not only that, because it's a systemic condition, my heart was inflamed, my lungs, my liver, my kidneys, every single system in my body was under attack. And with autoimmune diseases, what happens is that the body fails to distinguish between self and non-self. So your body views what's going on inside itself as being a sort of under attack from external forces, when in fact actually it isn't. It's your own body turning upon itself. So what actually happened was that I ended up so desperately ill that I was admitted into a hospice because they really did think that I wasn't going to make it, and I was told pretty much you've got 2 weeks to get your affairs into order, which was, I won't say it was a shock, because I clearly knew how desperately ill I was. I was 37 at the time, and I'd gone down from, I'm 5'5", I was probably a sort of a healthy 9-stone woman, and I went down to about 5.5 stone. My muscles were completely catabolized by my body's systems. So what happened really was that I essentially digested and used for fuel, first of all my fat and then my muscles. So my body had no way of communicating. My brain couldn't communicate with where muscles had been, because it was just, the whole thing had just completely gone. It was the strangest experience. Due to excruciating pain and this lack of ability to communicate with any residual muscle tissue, I ended up locked into a fetal position. Long story short, I called upon all of my knowledge of complementary medicine. So my background is that I'm president of the Complementary Medical Association and founder and co-chair of the British Academy for Lifestyle Medicine. I've trained for a long time as a practitioner. I've been in practice for over 30 years. And so at the time, back in the 90s, we were living in a particular way. We were thinking that things like you were eating a healthy diet if you were eating grass-fed beef and steak and oily fish and salad and having your glass of red wine and so on. What I didn't realise at the time was that it was all contributing to driving this over-inflammatory status. So I did quite a lot of work on that. And we've got the guys going past at the moment. Anyway, so we should be okay for noise, for sound. But so what actually ended up happening was that I radically changed my entire lifestyle, which was kind of difficult to do when you're locked into a fetal position and very, very poorly indeed and expected to die. But I had friends coming in who could bring me plant-based anti-inflammatory foods, mainly raw fruits and veggies. I instilled in myself a really rigorous meditation practice. I thought positive thoughts and reframed where I was going with all of this. And I even did things like visualizing myself dancing. I got my friends to put classical music on, ballet music, because I was a former ballerina, and so I could relate to that ballet music. I could relate to the choreographies that I'd learned way back when. And so what actually happened was that I could visualize myself dancing and doing ballet, and that was what really ultimately enabled me to reconnect with my muscles, whatever muscle was left, and start to slowly rehab. I was still immobile, as I say, for another year after that experience, and in a high dependency care unit. But clearly I was on the sort of upward trajectory. And then after that, I learned to stand again, I learned to walk again, and ultimately I now dance, which is just absolutely wonderful. Coming back to that, not ballet, but all sorts of other different types of dance that I can now do, having been told that that would never ever happen for me. I'm completely in remission, and I treasure that remission because I know that it's lifestyle that drives remission. And I have taken medications. Some have been better than others. I was on chemo for a very low dose of chemo for about 5 years. It was not a good thing for me to do at all, but that was what the medical model was telling me at the time that might possibly work. Obviously, it didn't really do much for me. So, it's been an interesting adventure. And so what I wanted to do is to talk to you a little bit about some of the things in the book, and first of all why I chose to talk about rewinding our body clocks. When I was in the recovery place, the high dependency unit, I became very intrigued by anti-aging, but I don't like that term anti-aging. It sounds really negative, so I like to talk about rejuvenation and longevity and silly words like that I've kind of coined, and they're really strange, but they kind of work and fit with the topic. I was approached because of my work in the Complementary Medical Association, I was approached by a company that had biological age testing systems. And I thought, well, this is interesting, and I'm not terribly well, but I'll test my biological age. I was 36, 37 at the time. I was measuring at 55, so a heck of a lot older than my biological age was a heck of a lot older than my chronological age. It was a bit devastating, but I thought, okay, fine. It's information. Don't freak out about it. It's just information. So I set out to obviously, get myself better, get my antioxidant status better, get all the markers, all the biomarkers of aging improved. And that's what I talk about in this book. Now, the situation now for me is because I live this life that I write about, my biological markers of aging, and I do have all the exercises and tests that you can do on yourself, very easy. They don't cost you anything to do. They're just, they're just brilliant and actually really quite good fun. So that now measures me and puts me at biological age of 27, although I'm now 55. So it does work, and I've managed to sustain that. That rewind status, which is quite interesting because, I do lead a very, very busy life and, jet around the world teaching here, there and everywhere. So there's something in this that really, truly works. So what are those elements that we can pick out? Well, first of all, I would like to say I believe that mindset is 99.9% of the battle. What happens is that everything else follows from there. And I'm not just the only person that thinks this. I have this massive girl crush on Professor Ellen Langer. She's a psychology professor at Harvard, and I swear to goodness, I go to Harvard quite a lot because I study with Dr. Herbert Benson, now and again, not permanently, but now and again, in the Faculty of Mind-Body Medicine. And I'll come on to a little bit about that in a moment. But I swear to goodness, if I ever saw Ellen Langer walking around the campus at Harvard, I would faint because I'm that much of a fangirl. She's just extraordinary. She's the person, she's the scientist who's done so much work on finding out and teasing out why we age. Why do some of us age better than others? What is all of that? What's going on behind that? And she believes it's particularly to do with belief systems. And I really believe that to be true. I really do think that our mental and emotional patterning that we engender through our belief systems really dictates, essentially how well we age. Of course, there's a lot more to it than that. You can't just think yourself young. Contrary to the article in the Daily Mail a couple of weeks ago, they did two serializations of my book, and the headline was, "Can you think yourself young?" And I was thinking, well, it's great they've done this, but not really. It really helps, but that's not the be-all and end-all. And then they did come in with some really quite nice snippets of information from the book anyway, so that was all good. But what I want to say is that positivity, now I don't, as I say, I don't normally talk from notes, but I've got so much that I want to just explain to you. So positivity and positive mental attitude. Now you know that through visualization studies and so on, it's not good enough just to sort of throw some thoughts out there and you know, just hope it's going to stick. You've really got to feel, you've got to emotionally engage with what you're visualizing, or the positivity of what you really, you know, the outcome that you really want to have. And it has been shown in research that people who have a positive mental attitude and a positive and optimistic outlook do actually have better health outcomes. Even if they've been diagnosed with something really dire, what actually happens is that they do better than people who don't have, or have a positive mental outlook, or they're pessimistic. So there's a lot to be said for it. I also believe thoroughly in developing an attitude of gratitude. I know you all know this. The practice I like to do has come out of University of California, Berkeley, and they have this lovely thing, a lovely practice that you do at night called 3 Good Things. And what you do, and this is all about engaging all your senses, because it really helps. You know, it's a bit like manifesting, isn't it? But when you engage all your senses and you write about 3 good things that happened today, you not just write down, somebody let me go in front of them in the queue. What you should say is, somebody let me go in front of them in the queue. It made me feel like this. I noticed this. I noticed that the other person did this. It was a beautiful day. So add in as much as you possibly can, because when you come back to look at these 3 good things that you record at night each day, you'll really be able to re-engage with it. Now, what actually happens when you do that process is that it has a physical impact upon us. It enhances our immune status. It also reduces inflammation. And as you know, inflammation underpins every chronic illness. Illnesses that we wrongly associate with just an inevitable part of aging. Nothing could be further from the truth. These chronic ailments, the heart diseases, lifestyle-related cancers, things like type 2 diabetes, or the effects of type 1 diabetes, arthritis, even the neurological conditions, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, all have an underlying inflammatory component to them. And so what happens is that anything that we can do to reduce chronic inflammation has to be good. So really, essentially, my manifesto overall, if I had to give it to you in a nutshell, is get your inflammation down. And that is a mind, body, spirit process. You can't just do one thing in isolation and hope it works. It's got to be the whole kit and caboodle. So, and that's what I did to get well. So 3 good things practice. Now, the other thing that really stems from this mind-body medicine side of things is resilience. Developing resilience to stressors. We can't do stress management, because when you think about it, that's a bit of a nonsense thing to say, because you know what? Stress happens. You know, when you're sort of walking along the road and least expect something to happen, you know, perhaps get a message, oh no, the world's just caved in. There's nothing you can do about that, because life happens, doesn't it? But it's not about managing that, because you can't. It's about developing resilience. So when we are faced with these inevitable big things that happen in life, what actually we have to do is develop resilience, so that the impact of that is not as dramatic as it would otherwise have been. So what I like people to do, and I recommend this thoroughly, is the relaxation response. Now, I learnt that directly from Dr. Herbert Benson, who wrote the book, The Relaxation Response. And Dr. Benson also hangs out, as I said earlier, at Harvard Medical School at the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. And it's a wonderful type of meditation. You should ideally do it 20 minutes twice a day. The way that Dr. Benson came about the relaxation response was that he studied different forms of meditation, but of course the most studied form of meditation worldwide is TM. And so he teased out the bits, being a scientist, he has to do this, tease out the bits that actually are the bits that work. So he came down to this very pared down approach. It is a mantra-driven meditation, and you do 20 minutes twice a day. What it does essentially is it completely changes not just the structure but also the function of your brain. And so you'll find that it has a way of enabling you to respond from the more I suppose the more laterally developed parts of the brain. So you're not responding in a knee-jerk response from your reptilian, ancient part of your brainstem. What you're doing is the actual response is a considered response. It's as if a stressor happens, and then you have a breathing space, be it nanoseconds, but it gives you that space in which to mount an appropriate and safe stress response that doesn't put you into immediate fight or flight mode, and certainly doesn't essentially upregulate your fight or flight response, which drives inflammation. Now, of course, back in the ancient times, that fight or flight response was completely necessary. You know, the saber-toothed tiger may well have come into your cage, into your cave, and you may well have needed to wave some fire at it to make it run away. Of course, we don't have these saber-toothed tigers attacking us nowadays. That would have been an acute situation where you mount an acute stress response. Nowadays, we do have acute stressors, but mainly we have chronic stressors, which just drive us into the ground and exhaust us, exhaust our immune systems, and exhaust, well, everything. So this relaxation response is a very, very necessary strategy for surviving in the modern world. I swear by it, and it is something that I believe in so much. I have a website, it's called JayneyGoddard.org, and I've created a free relaxation response instructional download for you there, because I believe it's so strongly, and so it's such an important thing, that I really would love you to just, with my blessing, just go and download it as my gift to you. So that's sort of the mindset side of things. On the nutrition front, obviously nutrition and nutritional status underpins a lot of stuff, really, doesn't it? So get the mindset right. Next, work on nutrition. In the book, I teach that we really need a plant-based whole food diet, because it is the most anti-inflammatory way of eating. We know this from massive studies, massive epidemiological studies. For example, the Adventist Health Study, AHS2 Health Study, which has studied tens of thousands of people since the 1980s. The reason they chose to study Seventh-day Adventists is because they're a fairly homogenous cohort of people, insofar as they tend to be mainly vegan or vegetarian. They don't have caffeine, and they don't tend to have alcohol either. So it means that they're kind of studying people coming from a fairly level playing field. The Seventh-day Adventists, easy for you to say, they live longer, they don't succumb to the diseases of aging like the normal population does, and so that really tells quite a lot. There have been numerous other studies in plant-based whole food eating as well, so it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. So when I teach, though, and I talk about this, I talk about a plant-based whole food vegan diet, and the reason I do that is because I bring in the lifestyle element, because veganism, of course, is all about compassion. And what I've found, and what many people worldwide have found, is that when you cut animal-derived proteins out of your diet, your level and capacity for compassion dramatically increases. And so what that does is it connects us to the all, to our animal brethren, and it also connects us very, very deeply with the planet as well. And so you start to sort of see things just by eating in this way from a bigger picture perspective. So that's why I've gone for that. And also, as I say, because, you know, the evidence, quite honestly, is overwhelming that animal-based proteins just simply aren't necessary, and they really don't work for us because they increase inflammation. That's not debatable, that's what happens. So, next part of the puzzle is exercise. What I recommend to my patients, and I've recommended in the book, is steady state cardio. I really recommend that people walk at least 5 times a week for half an hour a day. We are designed to walk. We've got these great big glutes. Some of us have got larger glutes than others, or maybe it's just my lushness. Anyway, so steady state cardio is incredibly good for us because what it does is, again, it's anti-inflammatory. But if you can get yourself outside and into nature, we know that exercise in nature is rejuvenating, it calms us, it feeds our souls, and it's just the best thing we can possibly do. And there's no excuses, not even bad weather, because if you remember Billy Connolly's, the comedian Billy Connolly, his statement was, and I just love this, there's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing. And I thought, yes, Billy, you're so right. So get yourself, if it's on a lovely day like this, obviously in your shorts, get your arms and legs out to get some much needed vitamin D. If it's disgustingly cold and dreary, well, just wrap up warm. After you've been walking for a few minutes, you'll get nice and warm anyway. So that is always good. If you can find one of those outdoor gyms, so much the better, because I really love people to introduce resistance training as well. If it means going to the gym, go to the gym. If you can find one of those places outdoors that have those machines that you can use, they're fantastically good fun. And they're all body weight exercises. Body weight exercises overall, if you care to include those, are also absolutely essential, really powerful, actually. And I also really recommend that people incorporate the mindful exercises. I'm thinking about Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, even Pilates, which most people don't realise is actually a mind-body-spirit exercise system. Joseph Pilates intended that right from the get-go. But of course, a lot of that's been lost along the way, and you'll go to Pilates mat classes and just do some sort of pseudo sit-ups and think, okay, well, I've worked my core. Great, I can go home now. It goes so much deeper, so look into it. It's a wonderful thing to do. The best exercise system, though, because everybody always says, so Jayney, if I can do one thing, what's the absolute best age rewind exercise you can do? It's actually dancing, because dance brings in so many different aspects. So you have to think about choreography. You may well get the socialization aspect, which honestly, socialization is crucial to this whole rewind picture. If you have a good social life, it's been discovered that what happens is you can actually add up to 9 healthy years to your lifespan, which is extraordinary when you consider that we're living longer. So our lifespan's increasing, but our health span is decreasing. We're getting sicker in general at a younger age. That's sort of the normal populace. So if you add dancing into the mix, it gives you the cognitive bang for your buck. It gives you the socialization bang for your buck in most cases. And then, of course, it gives you the exercise bang for your buck. But I've got another nifty trick for you. And this is a way of harnessing your I suppose, mental, emotional capacity, because one of my best rewind tricks is, again, kind of pulled from Ellen Langer's work, which is putting yourself into an immersion state. You immerse yourself into a time when your body systems and your hormonal systems and your growth systems were all absolutely at their peak, and that happens to be in the teenage years. So what I suggest to you, and this is just so much fun, if you can go and away and think about the music that you listened to when you were a teenager, go hunt it down, make yourself a playlist, okay? I don't care who it was. My era, of course, was, the Clash and the Pistols and all that lot, and Blondie and so on. Whether it was the Beatles, whether it was Take That, whatever age group you're in, just go back to... No, if it's not your age group, don't do it. It has to be your teenage age group, okay? Even go so far as to maybe, cyberstalk some of the pictures, some of the posters you may have had on your bedroom wall at that time. Look at some of the fashions from back then. Try not to laugh because it was always a bit ridiculous, but we thought we looked cool at the time, didn't we? But that's an immersion strategy. So if you can make yourself a playlist of that music, and by all means dance around to it like a demented monkey, that's what I do. Lucky nobody's watching. But yeah, it creates this, or recreates the hormonal and growth status of your teenage years. Now, we know this works because Ellen Langer was the lady who did that amazing BBC Horizon programme with Dr. Michael Mosley. It was called The Young Ones, and they took a group of stars who were very famous in the 70s, and they put them into a 1970s house only for a week. And everything in the house was 70s. The shag pile carpet, the psychedelic 70s wallpaper, the newspapers, the TV programmes they were watching, the Vesta curries in the cupboard. Ooh, anybody remember Vesta curries? What were we thinking in the 70s? What was that about? Anyway. It's so funny. But what happened, though, was after just a week in that environment, they had rewound their biological ages through doing the tests through doing the tests that I've got in my book and also on my website. They'd got taller, if you can believe. You know how as we age we shrink. People think, oh, that's because your spine's shrinking down and you get old and you shrink. No, we actually tend to shrink because we kind of go in on ourselves and we expect to shrink. So much of aging is expectation based. Their blood sugar was much more stable, their heart rate was improved, their blood pressure was improved, muscle to fat ratio was improved. They lost inches off their waists, not because they were exercising, but because they had mentally rewound themselves to the time of their lives when they were actually at their peak. Yeah, so do it. It really, truly works, and it's fun. Okay, so, yes, and finally, I just want to say, crucially, sleep. Sleep is so, so important. It's our time when we regenerate. It's our time when, if we've been working out, our muscles grow in our sleep. We detox, we recover, our brain detoxifies. Everything good happens during sleep. So it's essential that you sleep in a completely darkened room. There has been research that says that women who don't sleep in a fully darkened room are more prone to developing breast cancers and other hormonally driven cancers. I'm sure you've probably heard about that. So when we're sleeping, sleep is a state that we desperately need because also it's our dream time as well. And when we're dreaming, it's a way of going through the day, but it's also, of course, kind of rejigging our memories, and that is so important for us from a psychological point of view. And it's been discovered that people who need to or resort to sleeping tablets tend to end up having terrific levels of anxiety and so on, where they hadn't necessarily before, because the dream element has been removed. People don't dream, they don't experience sufficient REM sleep if they're taking hypnotics and sleep medication. So that, I think, is probably going to be enough of me telling you my strategies. So I would love to hear from you if you've got any particular strategies that you find really useful, because I always believe in sharing all of this. And just to let you know that on my website, although the book was released a full month early, so my web guys are now trying to play catch up with my new website, I will have, in about a week's time, a section, a back-end section to the site that's got all the age rewind tests that you'll be able to log into completely securely and actually track your age rewind journey. So, you'll perhaps look at the book and look at my 21-day plan, instigate that, and you'll be able to see your actual progress in graphs and diagrams and all sorts. It's very, very exciting, very user-friendly. Oh, you're quite right, yes. I mean, you could be vegan and live on Oreo cookies, donuts and Coca-Cola. Absolutely. That's why I talk about a plant-based, whole food vegan diet. I'm very, very particular about that. I'm very clear about it. Yes, you're quite right. You could just be a junk food vegan. It's entirely possible. But that's not what we talk about. We're not going to go there, are we, everybody? No. I mean, don't get me wrong. You don't have to be a monk. You can have the odd treat once in a blue moon. But I notice myself that if I do stray from the righteous path of whole foods, plant-based whole foods, what tends to happen is I just immediately notice that I don't sleep so well. My anxiety levels increase. I start getting bloated. All sorts of funny things happen. So you do notice it pretty immediately, especially when you get really, really clean. That's when things, you notice what's going on. Thank you. It's a great question. Really important. Yes.
What do you mean by whole foods? Like if you have a pepper or tomato, is that whole or?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, whole foods. It's a fantastic question. Thank you.
It's clean eating, I thought it was called.
Well, clean eating it sort of covers a myriad of things which aren't, a lot of people are still mistaken in thinking that clean eating incorporates things like organic grass-fed beef, which could be deemed to be clean because it's not exposed to chemicals and antibiotics and so on. But what we know about, for example, beef, is it drives inflammation. Also, of course, from an ecological perspective, we shouldn't be eating beef at all. We've all been told that just recently by the World Health Organization and British Medical Journal and all the big thinkers out there.
I agree with that. I think cattle grazing is wonderful for the land. It's the spraying of plant-based crops that's so dangerous.
Factory farming is devastating the rainforest. All of the American and Argentinian and so on beef producers are just wiping the rainforests out. It truly is not good for the planet. And if you go online, you'll be able to see how many resources it takes to grow a pound of beef versus the lower amount of resources it takes to grow a pound of plants.
This is my big worry is I do a lot of this research. I spend a lot of time on it, and I find lots of conflicting information with regard to meat or non-meat.
You've got to go to the right sources because a lot of the information out there is sponsored. Yes. Check out the PCRM because that's where you get the real details about
why is PCRM?
the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. This is a group of doctors who have done all of the research. They lay it out. It's very, very good. I need to move on.
Just quickly, this is one site though, but I'm talking about lots of peer review.
Yes, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. Yes, but you've got to also bring in the ecology side of things and the animal welfare side of things. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't eat meat, but I do eat fish. I just eat a fish-based diet. Would you say that's bad? And also, secondly, unfortunately, I suffer from quite bad chronic exhaustion and tiredness. Is there any tips you can give for that?
Yes.
Sorry, a fish-based only diet. So I haven't had meat for over 30 years.
Well, our oceans are really being devastated by industrial fishing. So that clearly is not good for the environment at all. Also, pulling fish up from the deep is just such a cruel practice. What actually happens to them. I won't go into it now because it's really, it's horrific. But watch films like Earthlings, watch films, there are plenty of films, Forks Over Knives and so on, which provide not just all of that, but also all of the evidence that you're looking for. I've got a whole sort of reading list and a whole viewing list in the back of the book, if you really want to go into all of the research there. But chronic exhaustion, well, really, that's a huge topic. And it's one that you would really need to talk to somebody about because I can't give you an answer because I don't know your specific situation and your medical history. If I had that and if you were my patient, then obviously I would be able to take your case properly and develop a strategy for you that would be workable.
As a supplement question, if you become a vegetarian, you get like in Holland about you get these soya vegetarian sausages and you get corn. Is that a reasonable diet? Would you say that?
It's not ideal. I mean, those are the sorts of things that you might want to sort of reserve for a treat once in a while. But I really do tend to feel that a cleaner, plant-based, whole food diet is really where it's... Oh, well, yeah, okay. But I have some nifty tricks for doing stealth nutrition. So I have some very, very nifty smoothie recipes and all sorts of different recipes that you can even fool your kids with. Because we need the phytonutrients. Plants contain massive amounts of phytonutrients. We're only just scratching the surface about how, not just what plants contain, but how all of these different chemicals work in this incredible cascade within us to provide optimum health. So when you think about it, when you've got obviously people like the World Health Organization, Lancet, British Medical Association, American Medical Association, and so on, telling us that a plant-based diet is the thing to do, then I think we have to sit up and take notice and look at ways of integrating different types of plants into our diets. And I don't expect everybody to run away and just be this virtuous vegan. I expect what I would like, if anything happens, is for you to all add more veggies into your diets, particularly the leafy greens. It's absolutely crucial and it will make a difference. Even in your situation, it will make a difference. So, yeah, thank you.